morning, and thank you for being here. Today we're sharing an update on Lafayette's crime data and highlighting the continued work and success of the Major Crimes Unit. The trends you'll see this morning reflect collaborative effort by our officers, our investigators, civilian staff, and our partners in the prosecutor's office. We appreciate the opportunity to share this information with you. And this presentation is intended to provide a high-level overview of current crime trends as part of our ongoing commitment to transparency and public accountability. If you have any questions, we will be available to you after the conclusion of the presentation. For more comprehensive questions, we are also available to schedule a meeting with you if you wish. With that, I'll turn it over to Mayor Tony Rosworski.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I guess I'm kicking things off here a little bit today. I'm going to do just a little bit of a history lesson, and then Prosecutor Harrington and our chief will really go over the stats and kind of dig into things. But it's hard to imagine, and most of you have been around long enough, that in 2015, 2016, we actually held a press conference up at the old training center in what's now the CrossFit gym, back there outlining strategic investments that we wanted to make over the next several years, the things that we wanted to put in place at the police department, including the very first initial discussion of this building. And it took several years to get this building built with all the permitting processes, all the design phase, all the architectural phases, to actually get this building built and this building open. But over those years, we have went back and looked and continually to strategically make investments in our officers. We know that our officers are the backbone of the police department. They're the backbone of these initiatives. What they do each and every day helps us very much to be successful, and all of our civilian staff that plays critical support roles. So we really looked at ways from that day forward. How do we invest in our people? How do we invest in our staff? How do we invest in training and do those things that will allow us to continue to police at a higher level? And as technology changed and modern police work changed, and we all know that us have been around a long time, it has changed dramatically, for me especially since 1983 when I first started. And so we continued to make those investments. And then we got to this facility where we were able to open this facility with the new opportunities for technology, collaboration, appropriate space to handle complex investigations and the different things that we see in modern policing, in a modern police world, and invested in technology that when we first got the building done, we have, but that we've added since then that we've been able to grow. So we're really, we're on that journey, and we have made tremendous progress. And if you look at those stats going back that you'll hear about many years, you'll see that consistent decline in crime and in violent crime that makes our community safe. And that's always our ultimate goal. We know that public safety is one of the cornerstones of a thriving community. And so that is important to our businesses, our families, all our citizens. It helps with innovation and growth. And we know that we have to have that to have the community that we want to have. And we're making tremendous strides in that. And then I just really a heartfelt, professional, and personal thank you to Prosecutor Harrington and all the staff at the prosecutor's office for this Major Crimes Unit that we've been able to put together to, again, utilize this facility. And what this facility allows us to do that was another huge step forward in being able to have that collaboration, that real-time interaction on some very serious, difficult, and complex cases. And again, having the facility to do it and watch things in real time unfold. And so a huge thank you, Pat, to you and your team. We really appreciate what you've done, and that collaboration is important because at the end of the day, results matter, right? You can talk about safe, you can talk about feeling safe, you can talk about different aspects of it, but at the end of the day, results matter, and we are achieving those results, and we will continue to do that in the future as we move forward, as we stay on top of modern police technology, as we stay on top of how we collaborate with our community, and we do a lot of different things with social media and outreach now and transparency. And these folks that we have in our community outreach program, Adam and Amanda and Nora, we've really tried to bring the whole package together to make us safe, provide resources, look to the future, and making sure we're taking care of the people that go out each and every day and risk their lives to keep us safe. So again, thank you to everybody for being here today. Thank you for all of our partners in the community that we collaborate with, because it does take all of us. We certainly appreciate everybody's willingness to get involved. So with that, I will kick it over to the chief, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and going back in time with your history, thanks for your vision, because that's important, because that does get us to where we are today. And the former chiefs and everybody that's got us to this point, thank you. And today is a briefing on community safety and trends. And I do want to thank also Pat and his staff for the true partnership. Also, the members of the police department that are here, our media, because it's important that everybody is aware of what the police is doing, because public safety is so critical. And today is about transparency. It's a buzzword, and it's meaningful. We believe that the public deserves to know and see the same data that we see, to understand exactly where our focus lies and why we make the decisions that we make when we talk about public safety. So to that end, one thing I'm announcing today is that we are modernizing how we share information. We currently do with our marketing manager a monthly recap, which does show stats and things from the police department that's put on our Facebook and our social media and our website. But we are going to make an adjustment to that in addition and do a live digital dashboard on our website. We're working on that with our analysts. So that will be here in the future. It's hopefully close to being up and running, but that's something that you can look every 24 hours for a refresh on our stats. It's something you're not going to look at every day, but if at any one time you want to see what the stats are, you can take a look at our police stats, Part 1 and Part 2 crimes. So I am prioritizing statistics because they do tell a story, but public perception often tells another story, and we have to address that. Quick story, I was recently eating breakfast. I was off duty, not wearing a police uniform, and sitting by the front door on the counter. And a man walked in and said that his car had been broken into. He was talking to the waitress. His car had been broken into, and he was wondering if there was any video in the area in the parking lot. And the response from the waitress was interesting to me, and it's something me and the mayor talk about constantly. So his car had been broken into, looking for video, and the waitress's response was, "I'm sorry that happened. It's just not like it was 20 years ago." And so let me repeat that. She said it's not like it was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I'm looking at W. Bishop. We were on the streets taking police reports and taking a lot of them. And there is a concept, and we all deal with this, called declineness. It's cognitive bias that society that we think there's an inevitable downward spiral. We all do it. We all knock off the edges of the past. So we view the past sometimes in what's called rosy retrospection, which is an undue fear of the present. So today I want to reveal some of our stats through what are actual stats and not nostalgia. So going back to my story of 2005, I was taking police reports. You can see in 2005, and maybe from, you can't see the exact numbers, but there's been a 56% decrease in larceny. So that story about it not being like it was 20 years ago, 56% decrease in larcenies. That's what I'm talking about, declinism, rosy retrospection. It's better now than it was 20 years ago, and the facts pan that out. And that's not the media's fault for putting stories out. That's our job to tell you what's actually happening and disclose these stats. Another very interesting Staff now have all these available to the media with a stat package, with all the graphs and more. This is a firearms stat, which we talk about shootings, aggravated batteries, they're very critical to us. The mayor talked about making initiatives. This coincides with Pat and his team. You can see in 2023, we had 61 shootings, and we call those shootings, whether it was shots fired, somebody was struck, there was a homicide. We had 61 of those stats, those numbers in 2023. And the blue line represents the arrest level. So in 2022, we're only arresting 28% of people that would have shot a firearm, whether that's a homicide, a shooting that struck somebody, or shooting at a targeted incident. This is critical to understand that we dropped that number down to 20, and we had a 65% clearance rate. 65% of those people that shot a gun got arrested. That's huge. That's really tops, I would say, in the entire country. That is a credit to our officers, civilian, all of our divisions working together with the major crimes unit. That is what drives these numbers down. Why that's important is aggravated assault. This is I notice here. To talk about aggravated assault, I need to be candid, because this is a stat that has risen in the last 23 years, since 2002. Keep in mind, I used the number 2002 because that's when we started our records management system that was computerized. So that's why 2002 is the benchmark. But that statistic has risen, but there are two vital context clues. One is population growth. The city's growing about 11,000 people, and the mayor, we always talk about, probably got shortchanged on that last census, probably more than that. That's one concept clue, context clue. The other is reporting and legal standards. So not making excuses. Aggravated batteries are the thing that we try to drive down the most. That's violent crime. But in 2021, we transitioned to something called NIDRS, which is a different reporting system. That led to an increase in what we call paper increase, not an actual increase in those incidents. Also, stricter legal definitions led to those incidents being a level 3 or level 5 felony. That used to be a simple battery. So those are two context clues to look why those numbers are bigger. Also, you have the population increase, so those incidents do happen. I will say, it's my opinion, that those are types of crimes that happen behind closed doors. Those are crimes of passion. I would argue that you can put a police officer on every corner and you're not going to stop those types of crimes. Those are domestic violence calls, those incidents that are disputes between people. However, I would point to the recency of a decrease. We had a 23% decline from last year to this year, and this was our lowest total since 2016 in aggravated battery. So it's a step in the right direction, and actually it's a step in the right direction with our officers working with the prosecutor's office and getting those people off the street, because that is an impact that we can make. We talk about Part 1 crimes. This again goes to my argument about the story I told about it's better now than it was before. We don't see it that way. In 2002, we had 3,400 Part 1 crimes. Those are the big ones: homicide, rapes, robberies, aggravated assaults, burglaries, larcenies, auto thefts, and arson. And you can see by the downward trend, the precipitous downward trend of this graph, we've had a 53% decrease in crime since 2002. That's the story that's not being told. That's the story that we need to tell. Here's a graph showing that same precipitous decline with an increase in population. So we have added to our city, and we've ate about a 20% increase in population with a, 53% decrease in Part 1 crimes. I don't think anybody would know that unless we were here saying it today and showing you the stats. Stats are critical, but you also have a story to go along with it. And so before I kick off to Pat, I do want to talk a little bit about why we're seeing this decline. I think a lot of it goes to the community as a whole. We are more integrated with cameras, green doorbell cameras. People are locking their doors. People are tracking devices on things that drives down burglaries, larcenies. And also, we talk about why we're having success, technology, the flock camera network that we have, increasing our CSIs and our forensic tools, engagement, adding, like the mayor said, civilian employees doing the jobs that cops used to do, so we can put more cops on the streets. Lots of innovation, lots of our technology that we're using. So, These are just a few stats. We have all the Part 1 crimes graphed out. We will get those to anybody, members of the media that want to have that. We'll post it online. But we want the public to know these things because it's an important story. So that does bring me to our key partnership that I think has really driven down and led to a lot of the arrests and talking about shootings and violent crime. And that is Pat will describe and talk about 2 years ago or so. We had a press conference talking about the Major Crimes Unit, and the payoff from that has been incredible. And the stats that he's going to show, I think, will really bolster what we're doing here at the police department. So with that, Pat Harrington.
Thank you, Mayor and Chief. This major crime unit, which we talked about for several years, and then we kind of started it in 2023. And what's novel about this is I think we're the only prosecutor's office in the state. What it takes, though, is just not our office. It's the mayor in this facility, and it's the Lafayette Police Department, and more importantly, it's the detectives. The detectives have bought into this concept that the prosecutor's office are more than just lawyers who sit in another building and look at police reports and say, oh, yes or no, or maybe. This unit, working with detectives, has improved both our attorneys' ability to go to court of law and explain police work and ask the questions so the juries can understand why the technology, the methodology behind a long-term investigation. And the other side of that is the police, the detectives, by working with us so closely, they understand the long game. It's not what we see in the moment, it's what do we need to get to the finish line. I explained this the other day to my staff and to some detectives. We're in a race. It's a relay race. It's a relay race. It takes, in a relay race, is 4 individuals running around that track, and what do? They have to hand the baton on. If you have the best first 3 legs of that race, and it comes to the 4th leg, and you drop the baton, you're out of the race. And I think that philosophy has taken hold, that we're all in this together from the first 911 call until the guilty and the sentencing or the verdict. And the statistics reflect all of this. What is the team? The team consists of a division chief, an attorney that has seniority and has the experience to understand, 2 deputy prosecuting attorneys who do an unbelievable amount of work. Our juvenile deputy prosecuting attorney, he also has Roger the K9 dog. It's not in my slide because I got it too late, but in 2025, the juvenile DPA and the juvenile detectives here, they took 38 guns off the street from juveniles alone. Now, someone would say, well, 38, that doesn't sound a lot. Yeah, that's major. That's 38 weapons that cannot be used in a drive-by shooting or accidental discharge, or brandishing that weapon in front of a police officer. And in 2024, that same unit took 42 guns. And what's amazing to that is some of those guns are voluntary surrender by the custodian of those children, the parent or grandparent. What that shows to me, and I think the mayor, times have changed where now these officers in this unit, they're able to gain the confidence of these individuals who come into court with their son or daughter and say, hey, we trust the system. Can you please come and get this gun out of the bedroom? That's major. So I want to emphasize the juvenile deputy prosecutor. We have 1 investigator assigned to this unit who's a former lieutenant of Lafayette Police Department, and a Roger, which is our K9 dog, and our Tippecanoe County High-Tech Crime Unit, which has been around since 2008. They work closely with the detectives and also LPD's High-Tech Crime Unit, which is also gives us more staffing, more software to work these long-term investigations. I'm putting a plug in. I was hoping someone from the county would be here. But my 2 attorneys who are here today, in 2025, they worked over 700 hours of overtime. They didn't get paid a penny for it. Let that soak in. That's 700 hours they work with their families, with their children. They're dedicated. They're compassionate. But at some point in time, maybe the mayor can help me, their need to be informed where their families do get a benefit of them being away from them. And I thank them so much for their dedication. They're up at midnight, 2 a.m., 6 a.m. They answer the calls. They're on call. One of them's on call each night for this unit. And we can't thank them enough. Statistics. In 2025, this unit, along with the detectives, this is all of us. This is the success of the unit, the strategy, and the philosophy of trying to take crime drivers and their associates, get them off the streets where they can't do this anymore. 50 cases were disposed of, 50 cases. 38 guilty pleas, 12 trials. The average defendant received 23 and a half years sentence in prison. They're not going to be back here to do another crime. Some of these, all of us in the room remember, but I'm going to go through some of the major ones. Amber Barrett homicide. Again, this was a lengthy investigation. It required a grand jury investigation, unbelievable amount of detective work and high-tech crime unit. She was convicted. Emily Madison received 50 years, 45 in prison. What's interesting in this one, I think maybe, and again, I'm going to go back to the mayor, maybe the first one where we had a female that was actually the ringleader of a group of individuals who committed murder, and they were involved in other crimes, dealing drugs, dealing weapons. Here are the other ones. Michael Penrod, 33 years, 30 years in DOC. Joseph Atkins, 28 years, 25 in DOC. Joshua White, 23 years, 20 DOC. So that group of four, they were responsible for more than the crimes they were convicted of. But they won't be in our community to drive those crimes anymore. And also, there's a theory of law enforcement called displacement, where either you push the issue away from you or they learn. They be criminals, they learn. They see their associates and quote unquote peers going to prison. They decide, hey, it's not a good environment for them to sit here in Lafayette or Tippecanoe County. And they leave, which is great for our community. Charlie Moore, another case I highlight, another female that was in charge of this group of individuals. She was convicted of 31 counts, including murder, and she was sentenced on those. There's 3 cases, but she got 64 years on one, 30 on the second, 12 on the third. This is another grand jury investigation resolving a number of open investigations, including the same individuals. Murder, attempted murder, aggravated battery. Her co-defendant, Bruce Alexander, was sentenced to 75 years in sentence, and there were 2 or 3 others involved in this. Again, these are long-term investigations that take out everyone. You're not getting just the one dandelion, you're getting every dandelion in your yard. The other thing that we've done is these grand juries take up an enormous amount of time, but they actually are very successful. And I applaud the detectives who have been assigned to grand juries. I think the first one came and said, hey, I want a grand jury investigation. What do? Just bring my coffee in, sit there and observe, and quickly learn that every night he or other detectives were out getting more evidence because we received information from witnesses that had never been told before. Timothy McClure, we also do other besides murder this unit does. A child molester, 44 years in prison. Marcus Bartoli, sexual battery, 31 years. This is his second conviction for sex-related crime. The first was in North Dakota in 2008. At some point in time, he moved to Tippecanoe County. Again, you probably had heard that you do some of these serious crimes in our community, you're going to get investigated and you're going to get prosecuted and go to prison. Delicio Gonzalez Chavez, again, 10 counts of child molesting, 2 different victims. And what we learned in this case is we applaud the courage and strength of both victims, including the second one who made a disclosure that opened up the investigation to obtain the necessary evidence to charge and convict them. That's another thing, and I'm going to talk about in a second. It's a secondary trauma that the public doesn't see, that officers and our staff, the victim advocates, they go through every day on their job. David Trevino, He was from Texas, came up here to work on the windmills and turbine. Immediate and thorough law enforcement investigation, including high-tech crime units, apprehended him before he was able to flee back to Texas and evade prosecution. 65 years in prison for a murder. Patrick Norman, it was a 10-month investigation, including hundreds of hours of reviewing cell phone records, social media surveillance, Indiana State Police laboratory testing, 70 years for his murder conviction. Keelan Holly, a name that probably every officer here knows. 3 counts of aggravated battery, 50 years DOC. He was known to local law enforcement and our office. He was a member of a local biker gang, Abalafia. He's a support club for the Hells Angels, and he's a former Norteños gang member. I think back in the early 2000s, started the Norteños gang unit here. He was attempting to shoot at rival gang members, part of the Mongol Biker Club, at multiple locations in different residential neighborhoods in Lafayette, which put all of our community at risk, those in vehicles, those who were out in the streets, and those in the homes. And that was an excellent investigation. Deontay Johnson and Shatil Walsh. You can see that he was convicted and received 32 years DOC, and she received 32 years DOC. This is one of the first, if not the first, conviction of parents resulting from child neglect and the use of a handgun in the state. In this case, the 5-year-old son retrieved the mother's gun that wasn't properly secured and shot and accidentally killed his 1-year-old brother. The father was in the residence, but due to his use of possibly illegal drugs, was sleeping on the couch. I'll put that a better word. And what was interesting in this case is high-tech crime unit through Lafayette Police Department. Our office obtained video that showed prior to the police arriving on the 911 call, he was taking and removing drugs from the house and hiding them in his vehicle. Francisco Franco Jr., 3 counts of child molesting, 85 years, 3 separate victims in different locations. Again, the child who came forth most recently gave us the necessary evidence to open up those older investigations, some of them were cold, and put him behind bars where he deserves to be. Elisad Onyas, this is the case, he received 92 years for his murder and attempted murder. This is unfortunately, this case probably, in my 20 years as prosecutor, traumatized. I know the detectives, the officer who discovered him, and my staff the most. This is where he killed his 8-month-old son by putting him in the bucket of laundry detergent and covering up the detergent. If this is an investigation that shows how vigilant our local law enforcement reacts, including the use of digital evidence, in promptly locating the defendant who had fled to Indianapolis and we believe was then attempting to flee the country. And this is what I say about secondary trauma. You can't unsee these things from the first responders, from law enforcement, until you see the pictures. And we even go as far as the jurors who sometimes have to hear these cases when there's no guilty plea, what the jurors, just regular people in the street, who, when they become the juror, have no idea what they're going to see and how they're traumatized on these photos and testimony. Nassar Johnson, 4 counts of attempted aggravated battery, 20 years. He was responsible for a number of shootings in our neighborhoods. His co-defendant in one of the shootings is set to be sentenced in March of this year. And this goes to what the chief said. These are these shootings that are being solved 65%, and they're driving down. We're taking these groups of 5 and 5 and 4 and 3 off the streets, and they can't do it again. And by taking them off, we believe others are saying this is not a good place to try to commit the crimes. Comanche Drive shooting. This is another one that shows quick investigation and digital evidence. Keaton Compton, 10 counts of attempted murder. This is where this group of, and I'll show them all here in a second, they mistakenly identified 2 other victims in a vehicle and followed through the neighborhoods out there at off Tier Road and started shooting at them, hitting vehicles, hitting cars, hitting a house where a father and a child was. This is the other 4 that were also able to be investigated and charged, and now they're in prison. Again, crime drivers. This group cannot do any more crimes in our community for years, if not decades. This, I think, helps drive down the statistics. So, in recap, I want to thank our attorneys. I also want to thank my chief deputy, Jason Best. He and I kicked this idea around for probably 10 years, and we had the same question that the mayor and the chiefs had: is how do we use the manpower? Where do we get the attorneys? If they're doing this over here, who picks up the other? You have calls for service, we have cases. And we were able to finally figure out a good formula with our attorneys, the intake unit that reviews, and the amount of subpoenas and search warrants that are done in real time is staggering. In 2007, when I became prosecutor, first thing I heard from the law enforcement is, why does it take 8 hours to a day to get a search warrant? Now these search warrants are done in the moment and signed electronic to the judge and back probably within an hour or less in some cases. So that's how this goes. On behalf of my office and my staff, we thank the mayor for his vision and working toward it, because let's face it, you know, every square foot costs money. And Chief, we appreciate you and your staff's acceptance and cooperation and guidance in helping our unit make them better, and also your staff. Thank you very much.
For the media members that take any questions on the side, we'll do our press briefing, but then we'll also send these stats out to whoever needs them, electronically, all of the graphs, and just talk about today. So, thank you, everybody.